They fined me $500 for unauthorized vehicle storage, even though my Harley was parked in my own driveway, 21 feet inside the property line. 3 days later, 2 patrol cars rolled up because the HOA president said my noise machine was a public hazard. Welcome to my channel. I'm Mark Jensen, a home inspector out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I tell true stories about property rights and neighborhood sanity. If you've ever had to defend your own porch or patch of grass, hit subscribe and tell me, where are you watching from tonight? I remember the clang of the metal kickstand against the concrete that morning. It echoed too loud in the still air, like a gavel before a sentence. My wife had just left for work, and I was still nursing coffee gone cold when the notice slid under the door. Pink paper, stamped, violation number 47. My stomach sank before I even read it. After my dad's stroke last year, the bike had been my therapy, his old Harley. Every weekend ride was a promise to keep his spirit alive. Now the HOA wanted to turn that legacy into contraband. The president, Sharon Klein, short blonde hair, posture like a parade sergeant, called me during lunch. Mr. Jensen, the board has decided your motorcycle violates our community tranquility clause, she said, in the same tone someone might use to cancel a child's birthday party. I asked her to cite the clause. She said, "Look, Mark, people like you bring property values down." Then she hung up. That was the line that split my patience. Property values down? My lawn was edged to military precision, the gutters clean, paint fresh. The only thing lowering values was her personality. The next day, I walked the neighborhood, noting how her husband's boat sat 6 feet into the common greenway. I measured it. Tape measure snapped taut at 72 inches, wrote it down. A neighbor mowing his lawn, Sam Burke, waved me over. "You going? To war with the board, Mark?" he asked. I shrugged. "They drew first blood." Sam smirked. "About time someone did." That night, I pulled the covenants and restrictions binder from my filing cabinet. 178 pages, amended 6 times. I started reading from page 1. Around midnight, I found it. Section 412, Vehicle Storage. It banned commercial vehicles and junked automobiles, but not motorcycles, and tucked into a 2014 addendum. Motorcycles permitted if registered and operable. Mine was both. The next morning, I photocopied my registration and mailed it certified to the HOA address. Return receipt requested. A small, satisfying sound, the slap of the envelope seal. My wife said, "You're not really going to fight them, are you?" I said, "No, I'm going to teach them how to read." 2 days later, Sharon and her vice president showed up with a security guard. She pointed at the Harley. "This isn't yours, Mark. It's on common property." I stepped onto the driveway, the morning sun hot on my neck. "My deed says otherwise," I replied, handing her a copy. She refused to look. The guard took photos, pretending to measure the boundary. That's when I decided to document everything. Every knock, every note, every phone call. I started a folder called HOA Nonsense 2025. I kept a small notebook in my pocket, noting times and words exactly. 10:42 a.m. Sharon said, "You people think rules don't apply to you." Sam came over again, coffee mug in hand. "You know, my cousin's a municipal attorney," he said. "She might help you for fun." Her name was Lisa Tran. She had a quick laugh and ink-stained cuffs. When I explained, she said, "Mark, this smells like selective enforcement." Knowledge nugget number 1. Under most state HOA laws, if a board enforces a rule against one homeowner but not others with the same conditions, it risks invalidating that rule entirely. Lisa helped me draft a simple letter requesting disclosure of all past vehicle violations under Section 4.12 in the last 5 years. I mailed it certified too. The return receipt came back, signature barely legible, dated March 5th. 3 days later, the retaliation began. A warning for improper trash can placement. A fine for unapproved lawn ornament. It was a bird feeder. An anonymous tip to zoning about unlicensed construction. My kid's treehouse. The absurdity was almost funny until I realized they were building a paper trail against me. I kept calm, kept logging. My inspector's instinct kicked in. Measure, document, verify. Every violation notice was time-stamped, photographed, filed. Sharon wanted chaos. I gave her evidence. That weekend, Sam hosted a barbecue and quietly introduced me to 3 other neighbors. Each had their own stories: overbilled dues, false late fees, ignored maintenance requests. "She finds us to fund her pet projects," one woman said. "We just pay to keep the peace." I told them, peace bought with fear isn't peace, it's tribute. The following Tuesday, the HOA board held an open meeting at 6 p.m. I arrived early, binder in hand. Sharon smirked as I entered. "Mr. Jensen, I assume you're here to apologize." I set my binder on the table. "Actually, I'm here to observe compliance procedures." The room fell silent. For 20 minutes, they went through landscaping contracts and pool maintenance. When I asked for the last 5 years of vehicle violation records, Sharon said, "Those are internal matters." I said, "State statute RN 60.51 makes those records open to any member on reasonable request." She blinked, then changed the subject. After the meeting, Lisa called. "Keep calm," she said. "They'll overplay their hand soon. When they do, you'll be ready." That night, I sat on the porch beside the Harley. The metal cooled under my hand. Somewhere in the dark, a sprinkler clicked on. My father's voice echoed in memory. "Don't fight to win, son. Fight to fix what's broken." I didn't know yet how right he'd be. By the end of that week, they mailed a final warning. It claimed I had 72 hours to remove the motorcycle or face escalated enforcement and referral to law enforcement. The envelope smelled faintly of toner and arrogance. I laid it flat on the kitchen table and traced the seal with my thumb, thinking about my dad's steady hand on the throttle, the way he'd say every machine had a truth in its sound. When Friday came, I didn't move the Harley. I washed it instead, chrome bright as a mirror under the noon sun. At 2:14 p.m., I heard gravel crunching. 2 patrol cars turned onto the cul-de-sac. Sharon stood at the curb with her phone out, waving like she'd just flagged down salvation. The officers stepped out, polite but tired. "Sir, we got a call about a noise complaint and possible trespass." I kept my voice even. "You're standing on private property, officers. I have the deed and registration if you'd like to verify." One of them, a tall man named Officer Reeves, nodded. "Let's take a look." The other officer walked the line from driveway to sidewalk, counting paces. He turned back. "This is inside the boundary." Reeves looked at Sharon. "Ma'am, you understand this isn't a criminal issue." Her cheeks went pale, then red. "We'll see about that," she snapped, heels clicking away. As the patrol cars left, Sam whistled from across the street. "Guess the cavalry's on your side," he said. I exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. Later that night, I uploaded the body cam footage Officer Reeves had promised to send. He'd attached a simple note: "For your records, public incident, no violation observed." I labeled it Evidence 23B. Lisa called again. "Congratulations, you just proved selective harassment. Now keep pressing for those records." This is where I'll pause and talk to you directly. If you're watching this and you've faced an HOA that acts like a private government, tell me in the comments, are you firmly anti-HOA or do you think some can reform? And if you've ever fought back, drop a tactic that helped you so others can stand up too. If you're still lurking on an HOA board yourself, well, this is your cue. Leave your message for the rest of us right here. 3 more notices arrived that week, all for absurd things. One claimed my mailbox paint had faded below acceptable standard. Another accused me of running a home business because of the inspection truck in my driveway. The third fined me $200 for improper porch lighting temperature. The bulbs were soft white, 2700 K. I checked with a meter just to be sure. Lisa laughed when I told her, "They're stacking nonsense to provoke you. Don't bite, just collect." So I built a spreadsheet, columns for date, time, alleged violation, rule cited, evidence, and response. By March 15th, there were 17 entries. Then came the anonymous letter slid under my door at 10:03 p.m. It read, "Watch your bike at night. No signature, no return address. My wife found it in the morning and stared at me, scared." I could feel my pulse in my temples. I installed 2 cameras that afternoon, front and side, Days later, someone scratched a key along the Harley's gas tank. I didn't swear, I didn't shout. I photographed the damage with timestamps, filed a police report, and emailed a copy to the HOA with a calm note. "Given recent events, I trust the association will cooperate with police." At the next board meeting, Sharon opened by saying, "We've received baseless accusations of vandalism. The association bears no responsibility for individual property security." I raised my hand. "Then why did your email list my motorcycle as problem equipment a week before the incident?" The room murmured. She stammered, "That was internal brainstorming." Lisa sat beside me, her pen clicking rhythmically. "Mark," she whispered, "they just admitted using internal communications to target you. That's leverage." She was right, but I wasn't ready to use it yet. Not until I knew exactly how deep the rot went. Knowledge nugget number 2. Most HOAs are bound by fiduciary duty. Board members must act in the community's best interest, not personal vendettas. Misusing internal communications or funds for retaliation can void director protections under insurance. That nugget lodged in my brain like a seed. If I could trace any misuse of dues or insurance claims, the whole board could crumble. I began requesting financials, line item expenses, insurance premium statements, repair bids. They stonewalled. So I filed a public records request with the city, since the HOA's stormwater credits passed through municipal review. Bureaucracy had its uses. The city clerk's office called 3 days later. "Mr. Jensen, there's a discrepancy in the HOA's filings. Looks like overlapping parcel maintenance claims on Lot 14, the common area near your property." Lot 14. That's where Sharon's husband kept his boat. I smiled. "Could you send that over?" That night, I spread the documents across my dining table like a battlefield map. Duplicate invoices, same dates, 2 separate contractors paid for identical work. One invoice bore the HOA's letterhead, the other a private business license registered to Klein Property Solutions, LLC. My fingers tingled. I'd just found my first real piece of leverage. I didn't celebrate, I documented. Scanned, logged, notarized a summary statement, sealed it in an envelope marked Evidence 31A. The next morning, I rode the Harley around the block, slow, deliberate, the engine a measured heartbeat of defiance. As I passed Sharon's house, her blinds twitched. I didn't look away. By the time I parked, Sam was waiting on his porch. "You look like a man who found the fuse box," he said. "Not yet," I told him, "but I know where the wires lead." He nodded toward the house. "Then light it when you're ready." I planned to, just not before they buried themselves a little deeper. By early April, my dining room looked like an evidence bunker. Manila folders stacked high, each labeled in sharp black marker. Finances, violations, correspondence, parcel 14. The hum of my old printer became the soundtrack of every evening. My wife joked we should charge admission for the HOA museum. I laughed, but my shoulders stayed tight. Lisa dropped by one night with takeout and her laptop. "We're close," she said, spreading her notes across the table. Their 2024 insurance renewal lists a claims history adjustment, 2 duplicate reimbursements for common area damage. Guess whose signatures are on both? I leaned closer. Sharon's scrawl looped right through both forms. So they've been double-dipping on storm reimbursements. Exactly, Lisa said. And if we connect that to the invoices from her husband's company, that's misappropriation, civil and possibly criminal. I tapped the stack of papers. Boy, we need something that ties it to homeowner funds, not just poor paperwork. Then let's trace the payments, she said. I'll subpoena through discovery once we get a complaint rolling. Sam knocked and walked in with a thermos of coffee. Heard you two plotting justice, he said, grinning. Need moral support? He sat down, peering over the documents. You know, my uncle was treasurer here before Sharon took over. Said she simplified accounting, meaning she moved it off the cloud. Everything's on that old desktop in the HOA office. I looked at Lisa. Locked office? Usually, Sam said, but she leaves it open on meeting nights. I didn't say it aloud, but my mind started building a plan. 3 nights later, I attended the next meeting, armed with a new request, transparency of financial audits. Sharon rolled her eyes. Mr. Jensen, you're abusing member inquiry privileges. We have real business to handle. Transparency is real business, I replied. She banged the gavel. Motion denied. Sam leaned toward me. She's scared, he whispered. That night, after the meeting adjourned, I lingered in the parking lot under the yellow sodium lights. Through the office window, I could see the glow of that ancient desktop monitor. I didn't break in. I waited. Sharon's husband came out 15 minutes later, locking the door behind him. As his truck drove off, I noted the make, model, and plate. Knowledge nugget number 3. HOAs that handle homeowner dues electronically are subject to basic record retention standards, minimum 7 years for financial statements and supporting documents under IRS HID 6001 and most state nonprofit codes. That meant deletion would be a federal-level issue. The next morning, I called a data recovery firm under my inspection company's account. They confirmed they could extract records from backups if lawfully accessed, so I made a plan with Lisa to request digital preservation during discovery once we filed. But before we could move, the harassment ramped up again. A city code officer showed up, claiming an anonymous tip alleged unsafe wiring in the garage. Then the HOA's newsletter published a reminder that certain residents exhibit aggressive behavior toward volunteers. The message might as well have carried my name in bold. I could handle the stress, until one evening when my wife found our mailbox ripped off its post. She looked at me, tears starting. "Mark, how far are you willing to go with this?" I told her the truth, as far as the law allows. Still, that night I didn't sleep. I lay awake listening to the faint tick of the clock and the wind chime my dad had hung years ago. The same chime that used to ring when I'd come home from a ride. It was the only thing left untouched. The next morning, I installed motion lights and doubled my note-taking. I even started marking each event on a neighborhood map. Red pins for incidents, blue for responses. By the end of the week, the board's pattern of harassment looked like a constellation. Sam stared at the map and whistled low. "They're cornering you," he said. "Good," I replied. "That means they're running out of room. And maybe you've lived this too. One rule for them, another for you. So tell me down below, how far should an HOA control what's on your property line, your porch, your paint color, your driveway? Where's the line between order and obsession?" Lisa's subpoena draft came in by email the next day. She wanted to file by April 20th. But, she said, we can add more weight if we find one more act of bad faith. We didn't have to wait long. The HOA scheduled a mandatory compliance review of my property for April 18th at 9:00 a.m. No other homeowner had ever received one. They even listed attendance optional but encouraged for neighbors. It was a public shaming disguised as inspection. I prepared like for a final exam, printed every document, time-stamped very notice. That morning, I brewed strong coffee and waited. At 9:12, 3 board members and Sharon herself marched up with clipboards. "We're here to assess violations," she said. I smiled. "Perfect. Let's start with your illegal parcel reimbursements." She froze mid-step. "Excuse me?" I held up 2 invoices side by side, the HOA copy and the Klein Property Solutions duplicate. Same work, same date, same signature. She snatched them from my hand. "You can't just—" "I can," I said. "And I will. You're misusing funds collected from homeowners under false pretenses." Her jaw tightened. "You think you're a lawyer?" "No," I said, "but mine's better than yours." They left within 5 minutes, muttering about defamation. That night, Lisa called. "We're ready. I'm filing the complaint tomorrow morning. Civil fraud, fiduciary breach, selective enforcement. They'll get the notice by certified mail Monday." I looked out at the Harley under the porch light, the chrome gleaming like calm water. My dad's voice echoed again. "Don't fight to win, fight to fix." I whispered back, "I'm trying, old man. I'm trying." The certified complaint hit their mailbox on April 21st at 10:17 a.m., confirmed by USPS tracking. By noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Sam. "Sharon's pacing outside the clubhouse. Storm's brewing." That storm arrived fast. Within 48 hours, the HOA circulated a special assessment notice for legal defense funds, $300 per household, due May 10th. They claimed it was for unanticipated administrative costs. My neighbors were furious. "We didn't ask for this fight," one man shouted at me while mowing. I told him, "Neither did I, but we all pay for it." Lisa smiled when I told her. "They just weaponized dues for personal defense. That's self-dealing." She pulled a statute off her shelf and read aloud. "Under Oklahoma Title 60, February 1 and 80.6, Associations Shiki, and levy assessments for non-common interest expenses. She looked up. We'll add it to the record. Meanwhile, Sharon doubled down with propaganda. Flyers appeared on mailboxes. Beware of litigious residents undermining community values. My name wasn't printed, but everyone knew. Sam tore his down and stomped it into the gutter. They're losing control, he said. That's when they make noise. One evening I stood in the driveway as dusk settled over the cul-de-sac, the Harley's headlight cutting a pale arc across the pavement. I thought about my dad again, how he'd taught me to handle engines, not anger. He used to say, torque is just patience applied to motion. Maybe this was the same. But the board's panic created openings. A neighbor named Gloria, 72, dropped off an envelope at my door. Found this in the recycling bin behind the clubhouse, she whispered. Inside were draft minutes from a closed session. One line glared in bold, motion to allocate legal reserve toward protection of officers' property. That was embezzlement in plain text. I scanned it, notarized it, and filed it under Evidence 38C. Lisa nearly spilled her coffee when she saw it. That's our nail, she said. They'll settle before this sees daylight. But I didn't want money. I wanted structure, something that would outlive Sharon's term. Let's keep it quiet for now, I told her. Let them keep thinking I'm just angry. She grinned. You're planning something. Just preparing the ground. Knowledge nugget number 4. In most HOA charters, members can petition to amend bylaws if 25% sign, forcing a public vote, even against the board's wishes. So we started gathering signatures quietly. Sam handled door-to-door. Gloria baked cookies for each visit. Within 5 days, we had 41 signatures out of 160 homes. The petition demanded audit transparency, term limits, and recall authority for misconduct. Sharon tried to discredit it online, claiming digital fraud. That backfired. People started Ted reading their own CCRs for the first time in years. You could almost feel the air shifting. Before long, an anonymous email dropped into my inbox. Check parcel 17. Unauthorized structure approved without vote. I drove there the next morning. Sure enough, a new tool shed stood on what should have been communal land. County records showed the permit pulled by none other than Klein Property Solutions. That was my secret leverage moment forming, though I didn't realize it yet. The shed's parcel had a 30-year easement for storm access, an easement that, per deed records, reverted to the adjacent property owner if misused. The adjacent property owner was me. I printed the deed, read it 3 times, then called Lisa. If they built on it without consent, what does that mean? She exhaled slowly. It means, legally, that structure, and anything affixed, belongs to you until lawfully removed. I laughed, more from disbelief than joy. So the HOA's illegal storage shed is mine? On paper, yes. Don't announce it. Yet. That became my first reversal. Hidden leverage. I filed a quitclaim deed transferring rights to a small LLC I'd already formed for my inspection business. Quietly. Lawfully. Sharon would discover it only when it mattered. That night I stood by the shed under the full moon. The metal siding gleamed silver, and a faint smell of fresh paint hung in the air. I placed a padlock on its door, my padlock, and walked away. Maybe you've faced something like this. Rules bent until they snap. Leaders who think community means control. Tell me below, should homeowners fight through the courts, or should we buy the leverage, own the asset, and make reform inevitable? The next morning, Sharon stormed up my driveway. Did you put a lock on that shed? She demanded. I kept my face calm. Yes, ma'am. It's my property now. You can verify with the county recorder. Document. And 2025-12731. Her voice cracked. You can't. I can, I said quietly. And you'll want to sit down before you read why. She stomped away, phone already in hand. By the afternoon, she'd called an emergency board meeting. I was ready. The Harley gleamed beside me like a patient witness as I gathered my binder, documents aligned, tabs color-coded. The smell of ink and resolve filled the air. Tomorrow night would be the showdown, the one with cameras, the one where the truth finally stood in public. The meeting was scheduled for 6:30 p.m., sharp, April 25th. I arrived 10 minutes early, binder tucked under my arm, every document in sequence, financials, deeds, timestamps, even photos of the shed gleaming under that full moon. The community room smelled like burnt coffee and new carpet glue, that fake clean scent HOAs love. Sharon sat at the head of the table, chin lifted like she was about to issue a verdict. Around her were the usual loyalists, Tom the treasurer, eyes darting, Vicky the secretary, clutching her clipboard like a shield. A dozen neighbors filled folding chairs against the wall. The fluorescent lights hummed. "Mr. Jensen," Sharon began, voice syrupy but strained, "before we proceed, the board has voted to suspend your member privileges pending resolution of your legal action against the association." I didn't blink. "That's unlawful. Section 7.3 of our own bylaws. Member privileges can't be suspended without due process or a majority homeowner vote." She smirked. "We're interpreting it differently." Lisa, seated quietly behind me, whispered, "Keep her talking." So I asked, "And how are you interpreting the part that forbids self-dealing?" The room went silent. I slid the two invoices forward, the duplicates she'd signed, and placed them side by side under the overhead light. The paper edges glowed faintly. "These are both paid from HOA accounts. One goes to a legitimate contractor. The other goes to Klein Property Solutions, your company." Murmurs rippled through the chairs. Tom, the treasurer, swallowed hard. Sharon's jaw twitched. "Those were administrative errors," she said. "Then you won't mind the state auditor reviewing them," I replied, sliding the notarized complaint into view. She reached for the gavel. "Meeting adjourned." Lisa stood. "Not yet, ma'am. State Statute 65-111. Any member may request the floor under procedural fairness during an open session. We're not leaving." Sharon's knuckles whitened on the gavel. "This is harassment." I leaned forward just enough. "No, this is evidence." And that's when the door opened and Officer Reeves walked in, the same cop from the Harley incident. He nodded toward me, then addressed Sharon. "Ma'am, we received notice from the county recorder's office that the parcel containing your new storage structure was transferred. We're here to confirm ownership to prevent trespass complaints." Her face drained of color. "Transferred to who?" Reeves flipped open his clipboard. "Registered to Tulsa Inspection Holdings, LLC, owned by Mark Jensen." The sound that followed was pure silence. Thick, electric, unbelievable. "That's impossible," she hissed. "It's recorded," Reeves said simply. "We verified." Lisa rose beside me, calm as a winter lake. "You built without consent on his easement. He owns the improvement now. You'll need to vacate or negotiate." That was my first reversal laid bare. Sharon's fingers trembled around the gavel. She looked from face to face, realizing no one was backing her this time. I gathered my papers, tapped them once into alignment, and said, "Meeting adjourned sounds about right now." Neighbors clapped, not loud, just steady. The kind of applause that says something's finally cracked open. But winning that moment didn't end it. The next 2 weeks were pure retaliation hell. I woke one morning to find a for sale sign planted crookedly in my yard, nailed there overnight. Another day, code officers knocked again, citing possible graywater runoff. My insurance company received an anonymous complaint about unlicensed operation of vehicles. The board's Facebook page filled with posts hinting I'd stolen community assets. Sam caught me one afternoon, crouched by the curb, pulling another flyer from the grass. "They're scared, Mark," he said. "Fear makes people sloppy. Fear also ruins good people," I muttered. "My wife's afraid to check the mail now." That night, I sat on the porch under the low hum of the bug light. The Harley sat where it always had, quiet, shining, untouchable. I opened Dad's old lighter, flicked it, and let the flame dance near one of the violation notices curling in the breeze. Just for a second. I didn't burn it. I wanted to. I took a photo instead. Notice, flame, and reflection of the porch light. Time-stamped, archived as Visual 1, Resistance. Maybe you've been through something similar. Paper after paper, fine after fine, until you feel less like a neighbor and more like a target. So I'll ask, how should these retaliations be punished? Suspension? Removal? Criminal charges? Comment what justice looks like to you, or at least like the video if you've ever felt cornered by power. By May 10th, their special assessment came due, and homeowners refused to pay, more than half. Some mailed letters quoting Lisa's statute line by line. The revolt was quiet, polite, Devastating. Without those funds, Sharon couldn't afford the HOA's defense counsel retainer. She tried bluffing, sent out an email saying collection procedures will begin. Lisa drafted a response. Any attempt to collect unlawful assessments constitutes mail fraud under 18 U.S.C. Sector 1341. After that, the HOA went silent. On May 14th, the local paper picked up the story. Tulsa HOA faces allegations of financial mismanagement. A photo of the Harley, clean as a mirror, ran under the headline. My inbox filled overnight. Neighbors, strangers, even a retired judge offering quiet applause. But I wasn't done. I hadn't reached the second reversal yet. This was just the collapse before the rebuild. And while Sharon's power shrank by the hour, I kept my calm. Because what comes after revenge has to mean something. By the last week of May, the community smelled like rain and resolution. Pavement steam rising, lilacs pushing through the fence line. The noise of war was fading, replaced by the sound of paper trails catching up. Lisa and I met at a diner on 11th Street, the kind that still used real sugar dispensers and cracked vinyl booths. She spread out her laptop, screen glow cutting through the dim. The state auditor accepted the referral, she said. They're requesting all HOA ledgers and reimbursement documentation from the past 3 years. I stirred my coffee. That'll strip their armor. It'll also strip the community's trust if we don't steer it, she replied. You can't just burn the house down and call it justice. I nodded. Then we'll rebuild it with better blueprints. We both knew the next board meeting, the public set piece, would decide everything. Sharon had scheduled it for June 2nd. She'd called it a special emergency session to clarify property and governance confusion. In plain English, damage control. The week before the meeting, I documented one last wave of harassment. A fake parking ticket under my wiper, stamped with a counterfeit city logo. Another HOA reminder email about prohibited engine maintenance activity. I responded with a copy of the Oklahoma Vehicle Code and a single line, no such prohibition exists. Sam stopped by one evening carrying 2 folding chairs and a 6-pack. Figured. We could pregame the showdown, he said. You ready? I'm ready, I told him, though part of me wasn't. I could handle legal fights, not public theater. But sometimes you have to perform to make the truth stick. That night, I checked my folder one last time. Deeds, invoices, emails, everything in duplicate. The padlock key for the shed hung from my belt loop like punctuation. At 6:25 p.m. on June 2nd, the clubhouse was packed. Over 70 people, standing room only, the air thick with aftershave, perfume, and tension. A few held their phones up, recording. Sharon opened the meeting, her voice brittle but loud. There's been a series of misunderstandings regarding association property and alleged misconduct. We'll be addressing those tonight. I stood. Then let's begin with transparency. I stepped forward, placed the deed transfer on the podium, and spoke into the mic. Per county records, the parcel containing the so-called HOA storage shed is privately owned by my LLC. Any further use by the association is trespassing. Gasps scattered through the room like fireworks. Sharon slammed her hand on the table. That document is illegitimate. Officer Reeves, standing at the back in uniform, raised a hand. It's legitimate, verified by the county recorder's office as of May 28th. I have a certified copy here. The sound of his clipboard snapping open might as well have been a gunshot. Lisa leaned forward from her seat. Furthermore, the board's use of common funds for private contracts violates both fiduciary duty and your own bylaws. Our civil complaint remains active. The audience murmured louder. Neighbors whispered names, accusations, disbelief. Sharon's voice quivered. You're tearing this community apart. I took a breath and said, No, Sharon, you did. We're just showing the seams. Reeves cleared his throat. I'm here as a neutral observer, but I'd advise the board to suspend any enforcement actions until the auditor concludes its review. That was the moment. The validation. The neutral authority stepping into the light. My pulse slowed to something steady, calm, absolute. A woman in the crowd, Gloria, the neighbor who'd brought me the hidden minutes, stood and said, We deserve elections. We deserve honesty. Then applause broke like a wave. I looked down at the Harley keys in my hand and remembered my father's words about torque and patience. He'd be smiling if he saw this. Maybe you've felt that same heat before, the moment someone finally sees the truth you've been carrying alone. Tell me, when power lies, should exposure be enough or must reform follow? What would you do next? The meeting ended with Sharon resigning temporarily, though everyone knew it was permanent. The treasurer followed her out, face gray. Vicky just cried quietly, whispering, "I didn't know." Outside, the air smelled like cut grass and justice. Sam slapped my back. "You did it, man." "Not yet," I said. "We still have to fix what's left." He raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Meaning we use the leverage to rebuild rules that can't be abused again." Lisa smiled at that. "Reversal number 2, she said softly. "Let's write the deal." I turned to her. "Term limits, audits, open meetings, transparent elections. That's the trade. They get peace, we get structure." And that was exactly what we drafted that night. Our reform deal, clause by clause, ready for vote. But I couldn't sleep afterward. Because underneath the victory was something else. Quiet grief. For the months lost, the anxiety my wife had endured, the nights I'd heard her crying softly when she thought I was asleep. I wanted this to mean something more than just, I won, and it would. The reform proposal went to vote on June 12th, exactly 10 days after Sharon's resignation. The air outside was heavy with humidity, the kind that clings to your collar and reminds you every breath costs effort. By then, the old fear had evaporated. People waved to me again. Kids rode their bikes without looking over their shoulders. It felt like the neighborhood remembered how to breathe. Inside the clubhouse, the folding tables were lined with clipboards and pens. Lisa managed the process as an impartial monitor, her calm voice echoing through the room. Each homeowner, one signature, verified address. Proposed amendments are on page 2. She had that thermos of coffee again, steam fogging her glasses every few minutes. I stood back, arms folded, not campaigning, not speaking. Just watching democracy quietly repair what ego had shattered. By the end of the night, 126 out of 160 homeowners had signed. That was 78%, well over the 2/3 threshold for bylaw reform. The reforms passed. Term limits capped at 2 consecutive terms. Mandatory audits every 2 years, results published publicly. Recall elections triggered by 25% petition. Meeting transparency, with audio recordings archived for member access. Fee, rollback to pre-assessment levels until insurance cleared the misuse. The first domino had fallen weeks ago, but this was the real collapse, the rebuilding disguised as victory. When Sharon finally faced the auditor's report in July, it was quiet, almost sad. She didn't fight it. The findings cited improper use of community funds totaling $18,700 and procedural misrepresentation. The district attorney's office confirmed she'd agreed to restitution and a 2-year probation deal. A month before, that news would have felt like triumph. Now, it just felt necessary. Lisa said, "Justice isn't punishment, it's repair." She was right. Newsspy. Read fast. Tulsa HOA overhauled after fraud probe ran across local feeds. The thumbnail, my Harley reflected in the polished metal of the new audit binder, looked almost cinematic. Gloria stopped by with a pie and tears in her eyes. "I never thought we'd see the day," she said. "Maybe now we can plant flowers instead of fear." Sam, ever the cynic, snorted. "Yeah, but you still can't paint your fence blue." We all laughed. "Maybe you've seen it where you live. Rules written for fairness turned into weapons for control. So let's debate this. Should board members who misuse authority ever be allowed back after serving penalties? Or should HOA offices have lifetime bans for abuse?" Behind the laughter and small talk, I kept thinking of the shed, the one that had started my leverage. Under the reform deal, I signed it back to the community on one condition. It would be converted into a transparency archive, a place to store public documents, financials, and records for everyone to access. We added a small plaque above the door, property of the homeowners, maintained by truth. That was the deal's soul, the second reversal made real. Lisa oversaw the paperwork herself. When it was done, she handed me a copy of the signed memorandum, stamped and sealed. "Congratulations, Mr. Jensen," she said. You turned a weapon into a library. I took it home and laid it on the dining table where the whole battle had started. The hum of the refrigerator sounded like applause in an empty room. My wife came in quietly, reading the seal. "So it's over?" I nodded. "Mostly." She smiled faintly. "Then maybe we can finally take that ride." The next morning, the sky broke open blue. I kicked the Harley alive, engine purring, wind carrying the faint scent of cut grass and sun on asphalt. For the first time in months, no one glared, no one watched. At the stop sign, Sam waved from his porch. "What about? Here to this time?" "Anywhere with fewer meetings," I called back. And I meant it. The community meeting minutes now listed me not as a plaintiff, but as independent oversight consultant, a fancy title for guy who proved the rules apply both ways. Before I rode off, I looked back at the shed. The morning light glinted on the new plaque, bright enough to make me squint. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw Dad leaning against the porch rail, grinning, that same patient expression. Maybe that was just reflection, but maybe not. Either way, I knew what he'd say. "You fought to fix it, son. That's the only kind of win that matters." By August, the neighborhood had changed in small, almost invisible ways. The kind you don't notice until one quiet evening when the crickets sound louder than the gossip. The lawns looked the same, but the faces didn't. They smiled more, waved longer. The board meetings, once a stage for power, had become potlucks. Even the minutes were shorter, written in plain English instead of legal fog. One Friday night, the new board, led by Gloria, held the first Community Transparency Day. We set up a folding table outside the clubhouse, the shed door open, files neatly stacked, binders labeled in my handwriting. Kids chased each other with popsicles, while parents flipped through financial statements, half amazed they were even allowed to see them. Lisa stopped by, jeans and a faded university tee, thermos in hand as always. "How does it feel?" she asked. I looked around, like the world shrank back to normal size. She smiled. "Then let's keep it that way." Sam handed me a flyer. "We're thinking of naming the street project after your dad," he said. "The Jensen Walkway, symbol of persistence and community care." I swallowed hard. "He'd hate the attention," I said, "but he'd love the meaning." We cut a ribbon that afternoon. A local reporter came, snapping photos of kids painting the new crosswalk lines. When asked for a quote, I just said, "Accountability built this, not anger." It ran on page 3 the next morning under the headline, "HOA Turnaround Creates Model for Reform." Still, in all the applause, I kept one thing in my mind, that fight like this shouldn't be rare. Every homeowner deserves the same fairness, even when no one's watching. So before this story ends, I'll speak to you directly one more time. If you believe I fought the right way, and this is how it should end, say a few words in the comments for your friend. Subscribe so future videos reach you first. And as responsible citizens, share this so others learn and get inspired. That's on us. After the event, as dusk settled over the cul-de-sac, I rolled the Harley out one last time that day. The air was warm, the pavement still sun-hot under the tires. I rode slow past each porch, nodding to the same neighbors who once avoided eye contact. The streetlights blinked on, one by one, until the whole block glowed gold. At the end of the road, I stopped and looked back. The new board banner fluttered slightly in the breeze. Integrity, openness, respect. I thought about the first violation notice, the key marks on the gas tank, the meetings that felt like trials, and how all of it, every small humiliation, had somehow built the exact opposite of what Sharon wanted. She'd tried to make me small. Instead, she'd made the community bigger. The shed door creaked shut behind Gloria, the padlock clicking into place. For a moment, I heard the faint metallic echo drift across the street, same sound as a Harley kickstand, same rhythm as finality. Then came the after-action flurry. Sharon repaid every dollar. Her husband's company lost its vendor status statewide. The HOA's insurer canceled coverage pending ethics retraining. A new bylaw required annual open audits and a mandatory code of conduct for officers. The first HOA Transparency Archive grant, $20,500, went toward community scholarships for technical trades in my dad's name. That was the real ending. The next morning, I rode out past city limits. The highway stretched clean and endless, morning light bouncing off the tank like a living thing. I didn't think about violations or bylaws or board votes, just the hum of the engine and the promise of peace earned, not given. Somewhere near mile marker 14, the road curved wide, and for a moment, the reflection in my mirror caught the faint shimmer of the neighborhood behind me, small, whole, steady. I smiled, twisted the throttle, and whispered, "On to the next case."